Okay, you have the NFL Week 6 power rankings. So number 10, I have the Miami Dolphins down 4 spots. They took a big L to the Jets, and honestly, their team did not look very good versus the Jets. Their defense allowed a couple of late scores, and their offense couldn't get going. But at least they have the excuse of using their third-string quarterback, and they also had a couple of other injuries. And the score actually wasn't as close as the game was, as the Jets got a few um, touchdowns near the end on short fields. And the Dolphins, they just got to get healthy again. Their defense hasn't played great, but um, and need to get better. But they have held some high-scoring defenses to low scores, and their offense, they need Tua back, and they just have to get healthy. And I don't feel like talking them out of the top 10 because of injuries. And number 9, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers up 1 spot. A okay win against the Buccaneers. They obviously had that big roughing the passer near the end. That might have given the Falcons the lead, but overall their team played well, especially in the first half. Especially in the first half, they dominated, having I think a 21-0 score. Their defense played great throughout, other than near the end, and their offense, like I said, been too inconsistent. Their offense to me is still their biggest problem. And that's why they're not in the top 5. They're too inconsistent. They have a couple of dry spells, like the second half versus the Falcons, where they did not score. And their defense, to me, has been carrying them. And fun fact, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is the only team that has never fallen out of my top 10 ever since I started doing these power rankings last year. And number 8, I have the New York Giants. First time they're on this list, and coming off a great win over the Packers. They had a great second half versus the Packers. Defense played very well, containing Aaron Rodgers, and their offense um, mostly relying on Saquon Barkley, but is doing the job well. Um, they're not higher mainly because they haven't had really any blowout wins, and their opponents have been pretty bad. But still, Giants, they continue to win it. Saquon's having a great year. Their defense is actually playing surprisingly well, and I think Giants are definitely a top 10 team right now, and 4-1. Number 7, I have the Dallas Cowboys back on this list, and they beat the Rams, and it was mainly off their defense. Dallas Cowboys defense has been playing lights out since Dak Prescott got injured, and they also played pretty well against the Bucks. And Cowboys' winning streak is fueled by their defense, which is good, and their offense has been doing enough to keep them in games and winning, and and they just keep on winning even though they don't have the most talented roster. Number 6, I have the Minnesota Vikings, another new team on here. Um, they're also coming off a win against Chicago. Minnesota, even though they're 4-1, I find their team kind of meh. Find inconsistent team. At times their offense plays great. At times their defense plays great, and they have these like halves, like the Buccaneers. They have dry spells, and then they have great football. And to me, they're just flip flop a little. But they still have Justin Jefferson right now. Dalvin Cook has been all right, and so has Kirk Cousins, and their defense has been all right. But it did allow 22 points to the Bears, which is not ideal. Okay, then you have number 5, the LA Chargers, up 4 spots. They're coming off a close win over the Browns, which a game they could have easily lost, but their offense has looked great so far. Even against the Browns, Austin Eckler played great. Herbert obviously played great, and their defense is where they have trouble. Their defense couldn't really stop Nick Chubb, and they did come up with a crucial interception, but they have not been very good against the run game, and defense overall has just been below average this year, or below average the past 2 games with a couple of injuries. But the offense makes up for it. And then number 4, the Baltimore Ravens, up 1 spot. Very close win versus the Bengals. And Lamar Jackson definitely didn't have his best game, but the defense helped Joe Burrow in check, and they ended up getting the win. It wasn't a pretty win, but they still ended up getting a win. And not Lamar's best game, but at least they didn't lose. Number 3, at the Kansas City Chiefs, coming off a close win against the Raiders, and they were behind 17-0 early on, and their defense wasn't really playing well throughout the game, but they didn't come up with a crucial stop. Their defense, they have been all right this year, but against the Raiders they weren't. But their offense was slow and picked it up in the second half. And Kansas City, they just have to play a complete game, similar to Vikings and Tampa Bay. Offense has been inconsistent at times as well, but when they're on, they're on. Number 2, I still have the Buffalo Bills completely demolished the Steelers. That's all I have to say. Josh Allen was like a god in the first half with 4 touchdown passes. Gabriel Davis. Defense held Pickett in check and Najee in check, and it was just an all-around great Super Bowl winner or Super Bowl contender team. Then you have teams that dropped out. Cincinnati Bengals. They lost to the Ravens, and it wasn't a very pretty loss, but at least they got their run game going. Fortunately, Joe Burrow couldn't get going, and their offensive line had their moments, but also allowed a couple of big sacks. And Cincinnati Bengals, they're just they're just they have had times where they look like their old selves and have time that have looked bad. So they got to fix some things there. Green Bay Packers, similar to Bengals. Packers, the offense could not do anything in the second half. They choked the game away, and their defense has been playing well enough this year, but not enough against the second half Giants, and they just really should have won that game. And the LA Rams, they have to get a few things figured out. They lost to the Cowboys, and the Rams. The Rams have not looked good this year. Matthew Stafford hasn't. The offensive line hasn't. They have to figure a few things out. And then the number one team, Philadelphia Eagles, still undefeated. Definitely a closer win against the Cardinals than you would have liked, but they still got out the win. And it was not the most pretty game. Jalen Hurts had an okay game, and the defense managed to contain Murray for the most part until near the end. And they're still undefeated. And they looked really well so far this season. Just the last game against the Cardinals wasn't the best game for them, but I still think they're definitely a Super Bowl contender by now. So there you have it, NFL Week 6 power rankings.